Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the SAF Podcast. This week, we're delighted to be joined by Maurits van Tol, who is the CEO of Catalyst Technologies at Johnson Matthey. Maurits, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine. It's an exciting topic to be talking about. So, thanks for the invite.
No, absolutely, our pleasure. So before we get into Johnson Matthey and what's going on there, do you just want to take us through your background and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, can do that. I'm, as you can hear, I'm not born in the UK. I am Dutch by origin, so I was born in the Netherlands. I'm a chemist, actually, in the catalyst field, so it's coming back to base, basically. The last 30 years, been active in the chemical industry. First 19 years for a Dutch company in a myriad of R&D innovation and business management roles. As actually 2010, coming in touch with sustainability for the first time, really, when I had to head the bio-based materials business there. So that was, of course, very exciting. And sustainability has been a red thread through my career later on. Worked almost 8 years as CTO of a chemical firm in Austria before I joined Johnson Matthey's managing board executive committee October 2019 as CTO, Chief Technology Officer. Did that 4 years, and as of October last year, I'm heading the Catalyst Technologies business of Johnson Matthey as their CEO.
Perfect. Do you just want to take us through Johnson Matthey's involvements in SAF? So your technologies that you're licensing and maybe some of the more notable achievements, because I know you've since you've taken over, you've had a busy 6 months.
Yeah. This space, of course, is in general, it is when you take on a new job, it's quite a lot of work to get to know the customers and the external environment, but also my own employees and all the different sites. So yeah, it has been very busy, but I actually like that, to be very honest. And it's a very exciting field, because what we're trying to do is help our customers who have traditionally converted coal, oil, gas into the base chemical building blocks and fuels and specialty chemicals that society needs to thrive, to also use alternative raw materials like biomass or like municipal solid waste or even CO2 as a feedstock. And why is Johnson Matthey center stage in that area? Because the process of converting those raw materials into chemicals and fuels largely goes through a syngas route. So what does it mean is you basically react with water or with hydrogen, or you gasify the raw materials and you produce syngas, a mixture of hydrogen and CO, carbon monoxide. Okay. And from that, about 40% of all the chemicals in the world, methanol, ammonia, hydrogen, and many others, are produced. So through that syngas route. And Johnson Matthey is the number one in the world in that space, number one in hydrogen production, number one in methanol production technologies, number three in ammonia production technology. So we have a very strong position in syngas. And of course, when you look at sustainable aviation fuel, that is excellent, because on many places on the planet, there's quite a lot of residual biomass. And what to do with it. And with the technologies that we have developed, you can produce syngas out of the biomass. And then with technologies we have developed, you can produce not only the methanol ammonia but you can also produce synthetic aviation fuel through a process that's called Fischer Tropsch conversion. And that, of course, you saw the headlines not too long ago with an announcement of DG Fuels. That is going to be massive. And it's a technology that we developed over the last decades with our partners BP, but we are the sole licensor of that technology and helping our customers to convert biomass, municipal solid waste, but also CO2 into sustainable aviation fuels. We also have alternative routes, of course, but these are the most important two routes. So we have Hycogen, which is a technology that converts CO2 with hydrogen into syngas, and then with Fischer Tropsch into SAF. We do it, and we can also, with the FT cans, I already mentioned, the Fischer Tropsch convert syngas into lubricants, into diesel, into these kind of hydrocarbons, but also sustainable aviation fuel. So our technologies are in the heart of the transition towards SAF, and helping our customers to fulfill the mandates.
Perfect. And you mentioned the DG Fuels announcement, which is still very recent. It sort of happened within the last sort of month or so. It's a massive project. It's 600,000 metric tons per year and a $4 billion refinery. It's a massive project. How is it working on a project of that scale compared to a smaller project? Because it is particularly notable for its size.
It's extremely exciting. And why? Because we have this technology. And if a customer wants to deploy that at very large scale, having other choices than JM, it's a massive testimony for the technology that we have developed over these decades. So that's, first of all, we're very proud that DG Fuels made that choice. Secondly, we want to have impact. We are a company with a purpose. We really want to help our customers scale the production of SAF. So that you have these very large announcements, not only of one plant, but potential of 10 other ones. That is, of course, great, because then we really have impact on the value chain. And that's at the end of the day, what you do it for. It's for business, but also you help, at the end of the day, decarbonize the aviation industry, lower the carbon footprint of humanity. And I mean, that's a really good thing for us and our kids and our kids' kids, right? So in that sense, it's extremely exciting, and you feel that buzz in my business and in Johnson Matthey overall, to be honest. So we're just very proud.
But the technology itself doesn't require any adapting or adjusting when you're dealing with that much.
That's the fantastic element of our Fischer Tropsch technology. It is very, very easily scalable. So the plants in themselves, the technology is such that you reduce the number of reactors by 95%. So it is a lot smaller. It is much more efficient, lower capex, and it's also very, very scalable for that same reason. So we can scale the plant size to the needs of our customer in a very efficient way, and it remains economically feasible. And that is a core strength of our technology. It is really super efficient, and it requires much less capex. So actually, the scaling of this technology is not a problem at all.
Honeywell are also involved, and they're also a massive licensing company looking at SAF very actively with different technologies. But they're working sort of, you're taking the biomass, turning it into syngas, and then processing it that way, and then they're doing the later stage. Is that correct?
So how it works is, it is of course quite an extensive process, all the way from the sugar bagasse all the way to the final product. And we don't cover the entire chain. So we work together with partners under DG Fuels direction. They select all these different partners for the different steps. So where we start is when we have the syngas, we will convert that with Fischer Tropsch into a kind of synthetic, in this case, bio-based naphtha. And that naphtha needs to be hydrocracked. And the hydrocracking part is done by Honeywell. So they do the next stage. That is, So we work together as a kind of a value chain, but all kind of unit operations are covered by experts in their fields.
And how is that dynamic? So obviously DG Fuels they're a newer producer. This is a sort of a first project for them. And obviously you and Honeywell are long established technology licenses in their different respective areas. How's that dynamic sort of working under sort of the DG Fuels umbrella with all those different partners?
It's a pleasure, because they might be small in number of FTEs, but they are extremely seasoned. colleagues and with a lot of enthusiasm. So we really, really enjoy working with them. It's actually going really well. But also the partners that need to make this work, obviously we also want this to make work. This is a fantastic project. So also we make sure that we collaborate between the unit operations to connect them in a way that our customer gets the biggest bang for the buck, has that just a plan that's second to none, and so that collaboration in that chain is of course very, very important, and that goes really, really well.
And what's the timeline for this project? So where are we at now? It's obviously very new. It's just been announced.
Yeah.
What's the timeline until we get to that 600,000 metric tons a year?
Should be on stream in 2028. That's DG Fuels plan.
2028. That's quite fast. You hear a lot of timelines from a lot of companies with smaller projects, not necessarily so large, and they're sort of looking at that sort of 4-year lead time in terms of getting construction and whatever. But obviously this is a very large project, so that seems quite fast.
It is quite fast, but I think it's not unusually fast. I think this can be done. And of course, what's interesting, the demand of SAF is very, very high. So they have the customers, and that's of course great for DG Fuels. For the first plant, they just have the customers. So of course, you have first of all a very bankable proposition. Secondly, there is the urge to perform, and that's what we all try to help DG Fuels to make it happen. And that's why we then look forward to the next and the next and the next plant. That's the whole idea. Yeah.
Is who made initial contact? Did you go to DG Fuels, say we heard of you thinking about this project and we think this could work, or did they come and say, look, you've got this technology, we've got this, and this could work? Sort of who made the initial contact?
It's how it normally works is we are well known in the market. For FT, we are just a leading producer in the world. So normally the customers come our way. How this one came about, I don't know. It's usually sometimes it was also before I joined, right? Before October. Yeah, there's quite a process that happened before that. And you meet several times also around conferences and what have you. It's quite a process, isn't it? You don't take those decisions lightly from either side. So yeah. But the customers.
So it sounds like you got to come in at the 11th hour and take all the glory.
No, yeah, I don't want to take any of the glory. It's really DG Fuels who stick out their necks, and it is my employees, my colleagues that make it work. So I don't want to have any of the glory at all. I'm just here, a very enthusiastic CEO, cheering them on and to try to make it happen, and that's what we are, what we're going to do, what we've done so far, and what we're going to do. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Do you see more Fischer Tropsch projects coming about in the future because it's such a long-standing technology and it's very diverse in terms of feedstocks that can be put to use in it, compared to, say, heifer, which particularly when you look at Europe is not so keenly looked upon?
I think and also there the raw materials are, there's an end to it. So it's quite impressive, the number of requests that come our way, and I think that makes complete sense, because when you look at the technology, it's next year it will be 100 years old basically, right? The technology per se, but it was always very hard to scale. So there's others that do it, but normally very, very capital intensive large plants. And what we did is, as I said before, if you can skip 95% of the reactor tubes and make things just simpler, a lot simpler, smaller and cheaper, then all of a sudden you give it a new lease of life. And that's what we have been doing. So with this very economical concept that's also scalable, there is now, of course, an awful lot of interest in working with us. Customers approach us with a wide variety of feedstocks and say, could this work? And can you help us, do a kind of a feasibility of if this could happen? And we're very glad to participate in that. But it's a technology that is, it's almost feedstock agnostic, which makes it, that's a very strong part of the proposition. It doesn't matter where on the planet you are. If you have biomass, for example, residual biomass can be husk, it can be straw, it can be bagasse, it doesn't matter. You can convert that into syngas, and then we kick in, and you can produce the SAF. But we have also customers who say, yeah, but could you take make methanol and ammonia? Yeah, that's green ammonia, what have you? Yeah, for shipping, and bio-based ammonia. You think about credits and those kind of things. So it's we're at the heart of it as the syngas leader in the world, and then also with a very flexible and economical FT cans technology proposition. Yeah, you can imagine that our pipeline is filling quite nicely with opportunities because it's so flexible. Yeah.
How do you decipher and choose the opportunities that come your way? When someone looking to develop a project comes to you, what's on your checklist to go, yeah, we've ticked all those boxes, we'd like to partner with you, versus, because you can't do them all.
No.
It would be too much.
No, that's a very good question. And of course, you can't do them all. So, of course, first of all, we want to do more and more. So we are scaling. My organization is growing tremendously. So, because this is an area that is just growing, and it's a core growth engine under my business. So that's what we're trying to do first. But also then you at the end of the day, you will look at the programs and the projects that have the highest chance to make it all the way to a final investment decision. So that is, of course, a criterion. But also you need to be very careful. So we have an open mind, because there's newcomers, and we also want to interact with those, because some of them they're absolutely gonna make it. So in that sense, it's quite a bit of an art that my colleagues have to interact with the customers and then try to make the best choices there. Yeah.
Does geography come into it? If someone's coming to you with a project, say in America, is that more appealing than someone looking to develop a project, say in India or Brazil, and or in more emerging markets? Or is that not really a consideration?
To be honest, no, not at all. Because our technology is as suitable in India as it is on their biomass, or it is in the bagasse in the sugarcane fields of Brazil, or it is in the US. So the technology works everywhere, and climate change is a global problem. So, and SAF will be in global demand. So that means this is a global play, and Johnson Matthey is a global player and a global leader in our space. So that doesn't play a role in that sense. Where it does play a role is when you look at the economics, of course, of a endeavor, of a proposal. It's obviously that DG Fuels is in the US and is going to make it, because when you look at all the incentives, next to the fact that the biomass is also available, the American government is helping them be successful at the end of the day. So that is, of course, then less of a surprise when you go to countries where there's less of those incentives. You will also look at the bankability of their proposals, but this is an element. Incentives and mandates, they are an element, absolutely.
When you mentioned you're getting more and more new players coming to you, what's the sort of the thing that they get right, and what's the biggest mistake that they make when they come and approach you and want to license your technology?
I think when you have, some of them have a very seasoned group of top management that runs these smaller companies. They're very seasoned. They bring in tremendous networks, and that helps with access to finances, but also with access to CEOs of airlines or airliner producers, etc., to what you need to do, ideally, of course, for a bankable proposition, is that you have offtake agreements that ensure that when you invest many billions in a large facility, that you get the money when much more easily when the offtake agreements are there with very reputable partners. So I think that is a success criterion for those, startup type companies. Is the successful ones, you see, they bring in those networks, they bring in the customers, sometimes also as an early investor to de-risk even the small endeavor that they're starting. And then they can grow big rather quickly because they have bankable propositions. So I think that is an important success criteria if I would zoom out and look at the industry.
Sure. And is the issue of companies, new startups can scale quite quickly, but on the flip side of that, is there a danger that they could look to scale too quickly? Because you see it with some, some startups. I mean, the losses come to mind where they've tried to scale quite quickly, have come into trouble financially because they didn't necessarily have the stability of the investment base for their idea and for the technology. Is that something, are you sort of sitting there trying to pull back on the reins sometimes?
I think it's a bit different if you look at technology providers. So basically that develop competing technologies to ours, right? Of course, many people see this is a market that's of interest going forward. So the thing there is the problematics are a bit differently. I think there what you see is Johnson Matthey has been in the chemistry business, in catalysis business for several hundred years now. So we have a body of knowledge and experience and expertise is second to none. And then when we went into engineering and design and started to license out plants, that's also 60 years ago or so. And some of the unit operations even longer experience. Look at the track record that we have and that we can show to the market. And it's very, very difficult as a new startup in the technology field to make that happen on your own. It's very, very difficult to build that up. It's very, very time consuming and very capital intensive. So technology development in our space is really, really hard. And not so much just from the invention point of view and writing a few patents. That's not so much the problem. Creative chemists and engineers can do that. But then to even invest in a pilot plant and the next scale up and then a demo plant and what have you, you're many hundreds of millions and 1 or 2 decades that you need to plow in money before you see the first returns. So that is extremely hard in clean tech, the way we do it, or in large scale chemical technology. So that's a different issue than what startups have, like DG Fuel on the marketing side. I think they bring together a small bunch of absolutely brilliant, seasoned people with massive networks, and they can pull it off. Because what they can do is when the commercial side of things and the incentive side of things, and they know that when they have a good proposition, they can go to a reputable technology supplier like JM, and that's actually then, in that sense, easier to get things done, bring it to scale much more quickly, if that makes sense.
Do you think the licensing model then is, because obviously the climate crisis is, it's not going away and we need action now and it needs to be fast. There is concern in Europe and in the UK now with our recent mandate announcements that, they're going to be challenging to hit considering current levels of production. Do you think licensing is the model to accelerate the SAF production industry to begin with? And then when you look later down the line, those sort of self-developed technology companies could come into play. Do you think this is the way to sort of kickstart production?
I to be very honest, I think it's the only way. Because, the mandates, they're not far out. And even 2050 sounds like, net zero by 2050 or whatever. It sounds like that's far away, but it isn't in large capital intensive industry. If you buy a new airplane right now, they will last more than 30 years. So a 30-year horizon is not very long, and it's less than 30 to 2050. So you need to bet big on technologies that are out there today. And our FT cans is out there today. So you can license it from us. It comes with all the warranties. We'll help you scale it. Yeah. So And I think that is the thing what you need to do when there is a mandate, and there is people like DG Fuels that bring the right parties together, demand supply, then go to a technology provider like Johnson Matthey that can make this happen for you and with you, because the technology is ready now.
Another big sort of industry segment that people are clamoring for more involvement with is the oil and gas industry. And your FT cans technology was developed with BP. So
Yes.
What was their role in the development of that technology?
We've been developing this technology since 1996. So long time ago, and actually BP did some of the very fundamental discoveries in the catalyst field, and we helped them then scale it, improve it, and what have you, brought in the engineering. So over time, we co-developed the FT cans technology, and we are now the sole licensor of this technology. So BP doesn't license it; we license it on behalf of the two parties.
And what do you think about oil and gas more generally? Do you think oil and gas needs to get more involved in SAF production? There's some notable projects, they're not totally not involved, but do you think they could get more engaged?
I think they will become more engaged, because also oil and gas companies, they see this could be an additional revenue stream, because when there is mandates in play, you just need to fulfill them, whether you like it or not. I would say it just needs to happen. So, and the airline industry is a massive industry, and it's growing as well. So it's massive and growing. That's a market segment you just want to be part of. So what we see is that also the pipeline of opportunities is filled with oil and gas companies that say, hey, we want to be part of this game. And some have access also to abundant renewables or abundant hydrogen or what have you. And we can help them because of our suite of technologies. We can help them convert, as I said at the beginning, almost any raw material and raw material combination. We can help them convert that economically into SAF. And I think, and they see that. So they don't want to see this opportunity pass by. And then, of course, what you then have as a benefit is they know how to build large-scale plants. That's what they have been doing for 125 years. So in that sense, they can just pull it off and help the industry to, maturization and to very large scale very, very quickly, because that's their bread and butter. They know how to do it. So you will see the oil and gas industry being heavily involved in this area. That is my strong conviction, and that's what we see from requests that come our way, because this is an enormous business opportunity.
Are you getting more requests from the oil and gas sector or the sort of new startup type companies looking to get into production?
Oh, it's a perfect mix, to be very honest. It is a very broad a range of parties that approach us. Yeah, startups, oil and gas companies that are large but not in the space, but see the opportunity or are backward integrated into raw materials and say, what could I do with this that brings some value? It is a very broad array of parties. Yeah.
Lots of critics of sort of SAF and oil and gas companies will say, oil and gas, they are looking at it as an investment opportunity, and look, these are the mandates. This is an area where we can diversify our revenue portfolios. But critics would say, well, they should be looking to decarbonize their current productions and converting plants and looking at getting away from oil and gas rather than just adding on SAF. Do you think that's fair?
Look, when I zoom out, at the end of the day, we are the consumers. We fill up our tanks or we fly, and they supply it. So with the mandates of SAF, and when you see now airline companies that say, this, what is it, 5-6%, depending on where you are, of SAF is not enough. We go for 10. So there is a market pool, and the oil and gas companies will fill it. Secondly, they have a lot of current assets, that is true, and they can and will decarbonize them as much as they can. We also have technologies to help them do so. So, for example, when you have like large scale hydrogen production, we can help you retrofit units together with our partners that capture the CO2 so that you don't emit it anymore, or replace an aging gray hydrogen asset by a very modern blue hydrogen asset. And we have several technologies in our portfolio there as well. And there is a strong interest of oil and gas to decarbonize their assets as well. I mean, it's for me and not either or, right?
Yeah, for sure. So slightly switching tack now. At the end of last year, you were involved in a flight by Virgin, the first transatlantic commercial flight on 100% SAF, which it's fair to say got quite a lot of traction in the SAF industry and actually in sort of the general global media. It penetrated through to, huge news streams, which can only be a good thing. What was your involvement in that? Can you just explain that?
Yeah. So when you look at the production of SAF, it is clear from my introduction, there's many ways that lead to Rome. There's many technologies that can lead to SAF or SAF components. And that's an interesting comment, because the components that you need is, for example, some of the components need to be aromatic of nature. It's a specific chemical composition. And a customer of ours who then became a partner is Virent. They developed the bioforming technology that can convert biomass into aromatics. And then you have a bio-based aromatic blend that you can use as a blend partner in SAF or in 100% bio-based SAF all the way. You can take it all the way if you like. Yeah. So you do not only have the alkane component of aviation fuel, you also bring in the aromatics. So that's the only way I know today that you can go into this bio-based blend of SAF outside HEFA. So in that sense, that's very exciting technology, and you need the aromatics because the seals in the planes, that to avoid leakage of fuel, they need to be kind of in a swollen state. These rubber seals, and that means you need some of the aromatics to keep these seals tight and closed, and it also helps you with the lubrication of the engine and the burning profile and what have you. So that component you can produce from biomass through the bioforming process that was invented and developed by Virent and then scaled up with us, and we license it out to customers. And that component was supplied in the fuel blend that powered that Virgin flight in December.
How important do you think are technologies like this bioforming technology in facilitating the raising of blending limits? Because obviously at the moment it's 50%.
Yeah.
And 50% mixed with crude oil Jet A1 fuel.
Yeah.
But ideally we're looking to get to 100% SAF.
Yeah.
So it's quite an important leap to make.
It is, and that's why Virgin could do it, because at the end of the day, with Marathon is the oil and gas company that is involved in the scale up and helping to produce this bio-based aromatic SAF component. So they produced that. They took other SAF and they just blended it so that you have 100% bio-based SAF or sustainable aviation fuel. So you need the two components, the alkane, the long chain components, and you need the aromatic components. And we have both in our portfolio. Yeah? So, yeah.
How important are flights like this for promoting what is going on to decarbonize the aviation industry? Because there's a lot of criticism that say people should fly less, and the statistics say people are only flying more, and that's only trending upwards.
Yeah.
So actually, news like this penetrating is quite important.
I think if people fly more or less, that's your individual choice, right? So that is if you want to fly less, you fly less. I mean, and I think when you look at the aviation industry, if you see the growth prognosis is very, very strong. So knowing that is the current reality, how can you fly in a somewhat more sustainable way? And then these demonstration flights that demonstrate that you can, if we would all want to, push it to all the way to 100% sustainable aviation fuel are very important, because they show the art of the possible. It shows that we have a choice. And I think in that sense, it's vital that we have pioneers who work in this space and show this is possible, and it's possible now, right?
So looking forward, say 5 years' time and then 10 years' time, what do you think the SAF industry will look like in terms of production or usage and all those different things when we're in 2030?
So when you look at our Johnson Matthey strategy and the strategy of my unit, we have said we will grow very strongly. We will quadruple between 2023 and 2033, and that is really a lot in the chemical space. Yeah, and that tells you how big the growth is in this area, because the main areas of growth currently in my portfolio, the portfolio of my business, is sustainable aviation fuel and hydrogen. So in that sense, I think it is revolutionary what's going on, driven by mandates and incentives, but also because of airliners to say even the mandates don't go far enough. We want to go further. Can you help us make that possible? Also, the willingness of consumers to pay a little bit more, and some consumers who fly a lot. Yeah, I know about consultancy firms that say our consultants, because of their work, need to fly quite a lot. What are ways that we can do to bring the carbon footprint down? And one of the ways is, of course, try to pay, the willingness to pay a little bit extra so that the airlines can fuel up with a little bit more SAF. I think, it seems all little things, but if we really want it, we can make it happen because the technologies are there. In our case, with the Fischer Tropsch technologies, the raw materials are there. It brings in a lot of, when you look at DG Fuels, it brings in a lot of money also for the local farming communities that now have somewhere to go with their biomass, with their waste biomass. And I think in that sense, we can really pull it off as humanity if we really want to, because the technology is there, raw materials are there. There's some customers that want to help initially also to pay for this. So I'm very, very positive about this industry. I'm very positive, and we will see many more announcements of large scale deployment of SAF production.
Is that the key, the large scale deployment to get there? Do you think we need lots more large scale projects, or we need the smaller projects? We need more smaller projects, or a bit of both to sort of actually make production meet demand?
Well, you need to look at the life cycle assessment. There is certain ranges over which you can transport biomass, beyond which it doesn't make too much sense anymore. So in that sense, you need to adjust your size to the local environment. That's why I'm very happy with our FD cans, our Fischer Tropsch technology, because that's what we can do for the customer, tailor it to the size they need. But then what we need to do is, this industry is huge. So we need to bring this to scale, a massive scale, as soon as we can. So scale is crucial. And not only to meet the mandates, to meet demand, but also to make sure that's usually also in our industries, scale means economics, good economics. So within the realms of what I just said, the reality of a life cycle is a full life cycle assessment, make the choice for the biggest plant you can build, because it just makes it more economical. And we just need it, because it's a huge market. Huge amounts of fuel are needed going forward.
Perfect. On that note, Maurits, thank you so much for your time.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Oscar.